All right, hi everybody. Today we're going to explore a simple question that is, should the church be involved in removing fathers, parents for that matter, from households? We have a Tarrant County father, Jose, who is with us, who is seeking unsupervised visits with his two children in Tarrant County. Jose is a fit and loving father with no history or even allegations of abuse or neglect related to his kids. But the child's mother is represented by Methodist Justice Ministry, which maintains close ties to the First United Methodist Church of Fort Worth. To discuss this and more, we're joined by George Saldana, founder of Texas 2503, and a grassroots organizer. There's George. George is a grassroots organizer for family court reform across the state. We will also be joined by Kyle French here shortly, himself a victim of judicial misconduct, judicial retaliation by disgraced former judge Barbara Stalter. And like George, Kyle is an outspoken advocate for victims of family court corruption. So we're going to wait until we have two more guests. Jose should be joining us soon. Jose, you were invited, but if you want to request to join, I can also admit you that way. And as soon as he gets on, we'll get started here. And then, of course, Kyle will join us. So again, we're here to discuss the Methodist Justice Ministry, and we've been, following Jose's case closely. Brandon, our mutual friend, has been court watching with Jose, who's in the 231st District Court. And I went last Thursday and was really astonished by what I saw because, Jose is very clear. And even opposing counsel, doesn't argue that he has no history or even allegations of endangerment to his child. All right, Kyle French wants to join. I will admit him, accept, and we're just waiting on Jose. So here comes Kyle. Yeah, Jose, if you're listening, just request to join. He says, Jose says, I do not have the option to request or join. You got any advice from George?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just told him right now to try from the cell phone. Last time I tried to do this, it wouldn't let me do it from the desktop. So
okay, that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, get on your cell phone, Jose. And let's see, Kyle should be joining us soon. I just accepted him. So.
Well, thanks for inviting me onto this.
Yeah.
I know about the system too, so it needs to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
And says, I don't know, Kyle, go ahead and ask to join again. I accepted it, but for some reason you're not in. Here it is. Let's see. That is, or he's back in again. So anyway, I went Thursday to the hearing, and Jose's, his case is pretty straightforward. He says, and again, the court did not argue that he has no history or even allegations of abuse, neglect, abandonment with his children. He's a fit parent, and he just wants to get out of supervised visitations with his children. And Kyle, for some reason, you keep saying you declined to join the room, so we're still trying to get these gentlemen in here, so I appreciate everyone's patience. But anyway, this justice ministry was opposing counsel basically, and there's no reason why Jose shouldn't be allowed to see his children outside of the visitation center. And so what kind of caught my attention is this isn't just a law firm. We kind of expect this behavior from law firms. This is a justice ministry attached to a church that raises a lot of money, has a lot of influence on its board of directors. It has Mike Moncrief, and for some reason we're having trouble getting Kyle, and it keeps saying declined. So I don't know what is happening. So, well, George, we may have to restart this and try to figure out what's going on with our technical stuff, guys. Because we're not getting Jose in here or Kyle. I keep clicking accept Kyle, and I keep clicking add, and then it says adding, and then it says okay. All right, George. Let's end this and get on a call and figure out what's going on here. We got to fix.
No,
Oh, here he is. Where's Jose?
Let's try Kyle one more time.
There we go.
All right. I don't know why. George, do you have any idea why Kyle can't get in?
Probably because he has an Android phone.
Oh, so do I.
I don't know. I have iPhone.
Asking me to rotate my phone to join, and there's no options. Interesting. Well, Kyle, make sure it's horizontal. I mean, I'll keep accepting you. Just keep trying to join, and I'll keep accepting you. We'll kind of try to make this work. All right, one more time. So anyway, let me get going here, and hopefully we'll get Kyle in here. So Jose, now let's give me a little bit of background into your story, and I want to kind of let you kind of describe, from your point of view, because if we're going to talk about this justice ministry as maybe not doing justice, it's important that people understand your story as a father. So, can you hear us, Jose?
There you go. Now
We can hear
Go
you.
ahead.
Yeah. I was just switching around the audio.
Okay.
All right.
Try to get it so the video's vertical. You can. Okay.
All right. That's
Yeah, we hear you fine, Jose, but you're sideways. Okay. There you go. Hey, Jose, go ahead and jump into a summary of your recent court hearing.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah. You look, Jose. It looks good. It sounds good.
All right.
So, Jose, from your point of view, what were you trying to do on last week when you were at the court hearing?
Trying to get the supervised visitations terminated. It's been an ongoing battle. Hopefully, we can get something going.
And talk about your two children when you can only see them in the supervised visitation setting. What is that like for you and them?
That's a little bit of invasive, I will say. What they've been doing is they question the kids when they come in, and they question the kids when they leave. So what that does is, for the next visit, just they don't want to keep going and going to the visit because they've been getting questioned constantly.
Oh, okay, yeah. And you were asking Judge Kevin Schmid, what were your arguments for wanting to lift this supervised visitation so you can see your kids outside of the visitation center? What were your arguments before him?
Let me pull them in. But basically, we're asking to get them removed. There's no proof of domestic violence or anything like that towards the kids. The kids never being harmed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's mainly the reason why they're doing the supervised visitations.
And I take it from seeing your hearing in person that the Justice Ministry is arguing against that. They want you to have to stay in supervised visitation. What are they saying? What are they saying is the basis for that?
They're trying to say that neglect or coming up with all kinds of stuff when I haven't been able to been with the kids for so long.
Mm-hmm. And will say this is, I mean, the supervised visitation is something that's being constitutionally questioned in California. There's a lawsuit T. Matthew Phillips is bringing. He's saying that it violates our First Amendment rights because we have a right to have private conversations, communications with our children. I do know other parents who have been really frustrated with that situation, and for their own mental health, they've stopped going, and that can be used against you, right? I know Dr. Brooks McKenzie realized it was not good for his children. It was not healthy for them. One child, I should say, it was stressful, and for that reason, some parents make the difficult decision to not participate in that very sterile environment. And when you do that, they use that against you the next time, right?
Correct.
If you don't comply with that. So it's a really horrible situation to be in. It's reasonable that you'd want to be out of it. So let's start talking about this justice ministry again, because if this were just any law firm that your ex had hired, we probably wouldn't be here talking today. But this is a ministry that has a mission to do justice. That's represented by a large Methodist church here at Fort Worth, one that I used to go to. And but when you learn that you're being kept from your children due to the litigation of a Methodist justice ministry, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I wouldn't think that they will be part of it, something like that, separating families, separating kids from their mom or their dad. But the more that I dig, more cases keeps popping up, a lot of default judgments.
Well, actually, do you want to talk about that now, George? What do you want to kind of bring? I know Houston has some of these kind of, faith-based groups that are actively litigating and picking winners and losers in family court. What do you see in Houston, San Antonio, Houston?
I mean, anytime a church is behind removing parental rights, I mean, you go to church to seek justice. I mean, you go to church to seek Jesus, and you have all these, what the Methodist Church preaches, is equality to everybody. And then when you have these groups that attach themselves to these churches just to advance or further their agenda or whatever, it's unholy. First of all, it isn't clean, right? Hiding behind the church to produce, fatherless homes. I went over some statistics that I'll go over a little later, but there's some statistics about, how fatherless homes affect these children emotionally, mentally, and physically. And then the statistics that go into, where these children usually end up with coming from fatherless homes. This right here is the power play for everyone. It's the pattern, right? Is we're going to just make false allegations to remove a parent. Some of the stuff that was sent, for me to prep for today, they're talking all about women in this Methodist justice ministry. I myself grew up in the church. I'm also a Methodist here in San Antonio, and not a practicing one, right? But this is something we would have never thought about even comprehending, right? Using the church to go after and remove parents. I mean, this 94% of non-custodial parents in Texas are of men, and if this is what they're doing, I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, and I have an interesting perspective on this. My uncle and my grandfather are ordained Methodist ministers in particular, but also I went to this church for maybe around 2 years leading up to COVID. And I remember hearing that they had a justice ministry. And when I hear justice ministry with the church, I assume that they're helping wrongfully convicted criminals, getting people exonerated who are wrongfully convicted. I did not know, and I never would have imagined that justice ministry was purely a family court thing, that we were hiring family court attorneys to go in and litigate on behalf of what appears to be exclusively women. So I mean, again, that's why I was kind of shocked to learn that. And we've looked into this. It's a nonprofit attached to the church, and they raise a lot of money. So we see a lot of foundational grants that have come through, tens of thousands each. Their board of directors contains some really powerful movers and shakers in Fort Worth, including the former mayor, Mike Moncrief, some huge investment firm kind of money, and they raise a lot of money. Here's what's interesting. I serve on a nonprofit board right now, and I've been on several nonprofit boards, even some large ones. And so I know that they are supposed to disclose their financials, and that's called a Form 990. And the IRS mandates that charities make this information public. A lot of charities, many charities actually, if you look on their websites, they actually have it ready to go on their website. You just click on it, and you can see all of their financial information, because they're not a private company. They have no right. They have no expectation of privacy, I should say. And so I've reached out to this ministry, justice ministry, asking for something that's really basic that they should release, and they have refused to do that. And I've then gone to the church. I'm asking the church to release it, and they're ignoring me as well. We've also noticed that as soon as you tag this ministry on Facebook, they instantly block you. And so I've been blocked. Anyone else who tries to tag this ministry is getting blocked from what we've seen, which is really bizarre behavior, I would just say. So
what
yeah,
are you hiding? Why are you blocking people? Why are you refusing to turn over 990s? I'm sure all of us right here are already labeled as domestic abusers, right? That's what they use in all of their I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up their website right now.
Sure.
But that's
the
what they have
standards,
on all their press releases. They use the word abusers.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're already judged from the get-go. This guy doesn't even have any allegations, and they're still labeling him an abuser. And now they're funding his ex's attorney to label him an abuser, not to see his kids. And nobody's doing any background check. Why aren't these people going to the cops and saying, hey, look, he abused me here. Here's the incident number. Here's what the cops saw. Here's what the child said. But no, they go straight to these nonprofits that are mainly for women, pay for their attorneys. Well, if 94% of non-custodial parents in Texas are men, how come men don't get these services? When we get false allegations, we never see anybody getting in trouble for making false allegations, but we see plenty of men get removed from their children based on false allegations, and nobody corrects it. Everybody just makes money off of it. The children.
Yes, and of course, these are really. It's really important that we take care of people who are child abusers, and they're held to the highest, extent of the law. But that's the criminal law. There's a criminal law against domestic violence and child abuse, and we're not saying there's a problem with that. But what we're saying is we take these criminal allegations, and with zero evidence, just based on maybe an affidavit, you come into a family court and you say, X and Y happened, and then maybe the other side doesn't show up because there's a default settlements, which we will talk about today as well, because there's a very high occurrence of default settlements in these cases, and it's possible that they're not properly serving people notice of these hearings. But there's very different standards in family courts and criminal courts, and we would all agree that these allegations, if they're out there, are serious and they need to be handled in a criminal court context. But that's not what's happening here. And I know that's not what's happening here because I spoke, briefly with the director there, and I asked him if you're moving forward with cases based on criminal guilty pleas, right, where the dad, because these are all dads in the situation, was found guilty, and that's not what's happening. These are simply based off of verbal accusations in family courts. So we take this very seriously, that these things are handled, but we also know in family court they're not handled very well.
Yeah, the false allegations, like, I know somebody's going to spin it. Somebody's going to spin it that these are abusers and they're against domestic violence victims. Somebody's going to spin it. And let me clear the record right now. We are not saying that. I am not saying that. Y'all aren't saying that. We are just saying because the real victims of domestic violence suffer when people use this system to gain the advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking away from the real victims of domestic violence. When you make false allegations, you take up that resource that could be used for somebody that's a victim of domestic violence. But when you use that resource, there's no domestic violence, right? You should be criminally charged for making false allegations and false police reports, right? Everybody that's a victim of domestic violence needs to be taken care of. I think we advocate for that. We always advocate for that, right? But on the flip side of that, it's got to be a healthy balance. There's got to be a yin and a yang. And right now there isn't. There's no balance in those scales of justice. Anybody can go in there and make a false allegation. And especially if you're a woman, 94% of non-custodial parents in Texas are men. And then you see this pattern, right? And now they're hiding it under the Methodist Church. I take offense to it.
Yeah.
Right? Because my whole life when I went to church in the Methodist Church, we talked about equality. Right now, everybody wants equality. Whatever movement you're in, the women's movement, father's movement, LGBTQ, the trans movement, everybody wants equality, but I'll tell you who's not equal are men.
Fathers specifically in the family court, yeah, and
right.
Like specific, yeah. And I remember many, services at that church, Father's Day services, sermons talking about, fatherhood, the importance of family, the biblical, importance of the nuclear family and the father's place in the family, that we're all aware of. And I believe what they're doing in practice with this justice ministry, it appears, at least in this case with Jose, to very much not be what they're purporting to do. Jose, I wonder, because your case is going to get more and more attention. If this justice ministry really stands by their mission, wouldn't it make sense that they would say, you know what, we made a mistake. Clearly, this father deserves to have access to his children. We're gonna actually cross the line and come over and tell the judge that you're a fit parent and you deserve access to your children. Do you think they'll do that?
Well, I hope they dig down in their hearts and tell the truth instead of making allegations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's no secret that attorneys are supposed to investigate their clients' claims, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if this were on the criminal side, Jose would be prosecuted and probably sentenced to death, right? If prosecutors for the DA's office could go in and lie and say, "Hey, you did this." No, I didn't. Yeah. Where's the evidence, right? Mm-hmm. If Jose was in this predicament on the criminal side, Jose would be fried. No, regardless, right? But the standard of proof in family courts, preponderance of evidence, is so low. It doesn't matter what Jose has to say. It doesn't matter what Ed Brown has to say. It just means that 51% of what my belief is as the judge goes, right? And if I don't like you, take it to the appeals court and overturn my decision.
Yep.
Go find that 20 grand, right? And that's a willful violation of you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many more protections in the criminal court. It's interesting because they're actually required Brady material releases. They're required to tell the other side when they have information that kind of exonerates them. In family court, it's completely opposite. They're not obligated to disclose that they're lying or making up things, or they believe their client might be making false allegations. They don't disclose that ever.
Yeah, well, and the state. And the reason I say that is because the state bar had a meeting and I watched it, the rules and referenda, and they were talking about at what point does the zealousness cross over into now you're weaponizing your legal services. And I got that from them because as a prosecutor, if you find out evidence that, hey, Jose is innocent, you're supposed to back off or,
Correct. You have to tell. You actually have to tell the defense. Right.
And in family court, it's no, Jose's an abuser all the way, and again, the standard's so low. But just to hit on that just a little bit,
go ahead.
The Family Law Foundation, right? And we can get into where their money goes and Does it go to this ministry
I-
and all these attorneys? Because you got a lot of big names on this ministry, right? Those big names aren't affiliated with Google or anything else, but they're with this smaller ministry that's moving money. And I'm not saying that, I don't know, I'm just reading what I looked up, right? But at the end of the day, you know, these people that I'm reading on their website, 1,000 clients served, 1,983 children protected, 3,051 lives changed. If you're doing that, if you're making it a pattern, and it also says on their 501c paperwork, it says for women. And if you're not checking your clients out and you're not, now you're just a hired gun. This ministry is a hired gun going after just pushing these claims out, because the more protective orders they get more funding, right? Oh, state government, federal government, my donors, right? We protected 80 people today. Doesn't matter whether they were right,
whether we vetted their stories. I
or
mean,
investigated.
right? Yeah.
Right? The more we push, the more we're gonna get more money.
Mm-hmm.
And then now Jose is threatened on losing his children. To me, that's a hired gun. And it's not even equal. Like, if I don't even want to say it, but at least if they had men and women, but they're not even doing men and women, they're just doing women and letting it roll.
Seems unfair. I mean, he can't go to this. He can't go to that ministry or someone else, and say, "I'm indigent. I need defense." I mean, what we're seeing across the state is these religious groups that get into this very questionable business are seen to exclusively be working for mothers. But I also imagine the grants that they're applying to and the funding probably only comes to groups that are representing women at this stage. So,
But it also has to be for low income too. So they say they're low income.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're making a lot of money. You guys want to go through the questions we got?
Sure.
Okay. Protective orders. I've looked into this. I've done some open records requests. It's no surprise. You know, there's a lot of federal money that goes into grant money that comes into Tarrant County for issuing protective orders. $100,000 a year, just in one grant alone, and that's only for the criminal side. There's probably family court side grants as well. The county throws in an extra $140,000. So there's this big kind of pot of money that incentivizes, you know, issuing protective orders. So basically my question is there a danger in financially incentivizing protective orders, giving some kind of reward? They should do it because it's justice, right? I imagine the district attorney's office has a budget. They will do these things when it's necessary because it's, you know, important. But when you have all this money that can be won, you know, is there a danger there?
I think so. I mean, everything in your name, everything in their name, Methodist Justice Ministry, you would think would hold the Methodist values and justice values of doing things correct. But if you're going to use that name to fool people under the umbrella that, you know, Jesus is telling me to help all these indigent women that are running from domestic violence, that's cool. But make sure that you're doing everything in your power that people aren't weaponizing this service. And if you're making money on it under the umbrella of Jesus, it just even makes it more flagrant and filthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I grew up in the church. Again, I'm not I don't go to church every Sunday. I'm not, you know, the perfect person, right? But I know where my moral compass is intact. You talk about the children that you want to help, and you're actively destroying them by removing them from the other parent's household. And I say parent because when I advocate, and I do look at both sides. I do ask questions when I help parents, and I give them help. And if I find that something doesn't sound right, it stops. because I don't want, and we can read these things. We're not telling you what we're just saying because we want to say it, because we have somebody that is going against Methodist Justice Ministries. Somebody brought a claim to you, you asked me about it, I started looking into it, and the 501c paperwork, I mean, I'm looking at it now, and it says it's for women. And then there's no oversight. Then if there is oversight, you go to the board of directors, and it's all these bigwigs, and they're all attorneys, and they're all friends with judges. So now the ministry is saying, hey, I'm going to walk into Tarrant County Courthouse. I know this judge, and he's not going to go against the minister or the state bar. Forget Jose, forget his kids. Give me my money, give me my protective order. Let's go. I'm going to get more money through federal funding or state funding.
And we're looking at, maybe, we don't know yet because we don't have their financials, because they think they can hide that. But from what we've seen online so far, it looks like an annual budget of around $1.2 million. Yeah.
I did some research. $1.2 million. That's what the SCJC gets for investigating judges. The same budget. These guys are pushing out more protective orders than the SCJC is disciplining judges.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they're getting a lot of money, and again, if you want to, you're saying, these bigwigs, Moncrief, if you want to go to the board and say, hey, this mission is, hurting me. I want to see my children. I don't think Mike Moncrief's going to return your emails. I don't think these really powerful investment groups who are on the board are really going to give you the time of day. I'm not quite sure, what options are left. I know, Jose, you reached out to the elders of the church, and they should take this seriously. I hope they don't ignore this and just try to wish it away. It's not, would not be a really good look for a church. But, we'll see if they just try to ignore this problem away. But they're going to have a hard time doing that, because what Jose and George and some other people are doing is we're starting to look into the cases. And we're seeing an interesting pattern. One thing that we're seeing is that there are a lot of default settlements. And so they're winning a lot of cases because the other side's not showing up to court. And they're using the last known address, if even that. And we all know that, I've moved 3 times in the last, 5 years. If the county, even to this day, has my old address, Jose, do we know, we're going to keep looking into this. Do we know how well they're trying to make sure people have proper service of their hearings?
Basically, what they're asking is the partner and whatever address the partner gives them. That's what they're writing under affidavits. Yeah.
And I'll give you. We found one case today which was interesting. I won't go too much into the details, but I will say it was a default judgment where basically a non-biological parent was given full custody over this child, and there was first there was a temporary, there was kind of an emergency temporary order that was given by Hennigan, I think, and then 3 weeks later the same court issued full parental rights to a non-biological parent, and it says that respondent blank is in the process. Oh, has been served. I'm reading the wrong document. Respondent was duly served, but then at the bottom of it, it admits that they don't have her address. They don't have on this very same document. So actually, let me read it to you. Was okay. So respondent, although duly and properly cited, did not appear and wholly made default. So this was a default judgment. Scroll down on this same document, and you find that they don't even know what this person's address is, because at the bottom they're supposed to list it. And this was done by the Justice Ministry, on behalf of this non-biological parent, and on this same person who was apparently served but didn't show up. Mailing address unknown, home telephone number unknown, name of employer unknown, address of employment unknown, work telephone number unknown, current resident address unknown. And we don't know a whole lot about this case, but how did they serve her? And they have no idea they don't know anything about this mother. And I should say I don't know anything about this biological mother. And let's just there are some really tough situations this Mitchie probably has to deal with. So even if this mother had a chemical dependency, which we know often, people who at certain points in their life they'll fall into these low points where they are chemically dependent. That mother still has a right to due process, right? That mother, whatever happened in her life, it may be a mess, but I have a belief that person still has a right to due process. And if they're not being served and they're not being notified, we know that this biological mother didn't testify. I feel like that's something that we owe biological parents before we terminate their parental rights, no matter what they're. No matter how they messed up, what led to that point. And I don't know, maybe there was nothing wrong with this biological mother, but I still feel like she should be given a chance to know that her rights are being terminated.
I mean, we live in the social media world. They've already said that you could service someone by social media.
Yeah.
And what I don't get, I think in logic. What I don't get is that's happened to me before.
Mm-hmm.
They actually removed my rights because they served another George Saldana. I went to pick up my child with my court orders, and they said, your court orders are invalid. And I said, what do you mean? They said they had a hearing, they terminated, they gave her sole managing. I said, what are you talking about? I had to go and look, and I'm not a lawyer, right? I didn't have a lawyer, but I had to go and figure it out. Some people don't even know where to turn. They served another guy, said same thing by default. That's why I say these are patterns that everybody, with social media, everybody's using social media to connect. I've never met you in person. But we've talked online plenty, right? And we've only come together because of social media and because of certain patterns within the judiciary. We're seeing it. We're seeing the dirty plays that these attorneys are playing, and now we're exposing them. But they're going to come back and they're going to say we're all abusers, and that they're going to discount who we are so they can keep this scam going on. Right?
Well, again, I wonder. I wonder if how did they serve this biological mother? They don't know anything about her, right? But they said that they served her. So I mean, are they lying? We've seen stuff in courts where judges will sign orders that are completely fabricated.
Judges lie. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working with two parents right now that are working out of the 257th court, where Judge Sandra Peak is writing docket. They call them in Harris County docket notes, right, on the docket sheet. Some might be judge's notes or whatever it is, wherever you are in the state. But on the docket sheet, she's putting stuff that didn't truly reflect, in the judicial hearing. If they're serving people, I mean, where I was going in just a second ago was we're going to Mars. We're sending cars to Mars with Tesla, right? We have satellites all over, but we live in such our judiciary, our family courts are so backdated, right? They from the 70s. Why are we still using paper? We have barcodes on the back of our licenses to tell all our information. Why can't we put our court orders on that, right? Why can we not have a true ruling? If you are serving people, right, Jose or George Saldana, and they're saying, hey, we couldn't find him. Shit, George, I'm sorry, George is all over the internet fighting for his child, right? There's absolutely no logic whatsoever that George Saldana wouldn't show up. Jose wouldn't show up. Edward wouldn't show up. So when they come in and they say, hey, we tried to serve Ed, but we can't find Ed. And Ed's all over the internet fighting for his child. So is Jose. That if a father is trying, if a father is fighting corrupt judges, and when I say corrupt judges, the legal system knows they're corrupt. It's not like it's a new revelation. It's not like, oh, could it possibly be corruption within the judiciary. It's none of that.
Mm-hmm.
We know, we see, we can identify, we know the patterns now, we know the dirty tricks. So we know it's corrupt. But yet, when we voice out about it, now protective orders come, right? All these tricks that y'all are explaining, they've happened to me, and they're happening to other people. And one of the things that that bothers me is that they're so flagrant about it. Flagrant. The judges are flagrantly doing this, and you're there as a family court judge wanting to help children, and you're flagrantly denying this person. This guy is trying. He's learning the law. He's reading the law. What makes you think he's going to get his son or his daughter and just smack him? There's no logic in it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
But there's logic in, I'm going to have a ministry and I'm going to hide under the Jesus Christ umbrella, and I'm going to push as many protective orders out for people who might not deserve them, just so I can get more money and I can go to these nice domestic violence luncheons that they have, right? Pat themselves on the back on how many people they saved. How many children did you just remove their parent? Again, I'm going to say parent. I'm not going to say man. I'm not going to say woman. It needs to be equal.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk about equality, you want to hide under the umbrella of Jesus. Jesus died for all of us, not just for women, not just for men.
Yeah.
Color your skin, your gender, your ethnicity, whatever. Jesus died for all of us. And
mm-hmm.
if you're using his name, shame on you.
And to be clear, these cases are dealing with terminating parental rights. The ones that I'm looking through, and I just keep looking through them, they all end in someone losing their parental rights, like terminating parental rights. And if you're just doing the minimum to serve these people, or even less, I mean, we'll have to see if they even did the minimum. But it blows my mind that you can just send a letter to an old address, and probably know that it's not going to get to that person, and then show up to court, and the judge is okay with, based on that, just severing someone's right to be a father forever. How does everyone participate in that system? That is the most consequential thing that could happen in your life. That's worse than going to jail. For some people, it's worse than death, is losing access to your child. And you're going to just say, well, they're going to just trust that, we served them, they didn't show up. Well, the fact that they didn't show up should tell you something. And maybe you didn't serve them. Or did you actually talk to this person? Did they say they don't want to show up for their child? I mean, that's just, I'm sure that happens.
But they find him later, when they'll find the father later when they want that child support, right? We know exactly where he's at now.
All these cases, once they terminate the parental rights, I've read them all, they all go straight, that person loses their rights, immediately pays child support. So they are going to find that person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've had exes and I still have exes that make fake Facebook profiles and come look at me. They're probably watching me now, right? And I don't care. But you can't just remove somebody's rights just because you're like, I don't know where they are. I could go to my attorney right now, if I had an attorney, and tell them I want to do a petition to modify. I don't know where she is, period. Mm-hmm. I don't know a number, an email. I don't know anything. I don't know where my kid goes to school.
Yeah.
It's very hard
the
to
judges
lose somebody these days just not to serve them and just be like, we're going to remove your rights.
The judges are complicit. If I were a judge and they said, well, we tried to serve and couldn't find them, even if they had maybe followed the rules, I'm not going to terminate someone's rights until I talk to that other parent, until I get a chance to hear their side, the biological parents. I want to hear them. And until then, I'm not going to sign anything. But, this stuff, it's like a mill. They just churn through these, severing of parental rights in these courts like it's nothing. They don't take it seriously. And, and again, I don't know this mother in this particular case, this poor mother that lost access to her child and was given to a fourth police officer, now owns this child. I'll bet she thinks about her kid every night. Maybe whatever happened at some point in her life that, she was in a bad situation. I really doubt that she doesn't think about her child every day, and it's just really sad to think that it was cut so easily. But that's what happens, every day in family courts, and but maybe a church shouldn't be involved in that. All right, next question. Domestic violence and child abuse are, serious crimes that should be enforced to the full extent of the law when a criminal court finds someone guilty of wrongdoing, but these criminal allegations are often heard in family court as well. What steps can be taken to ensure that innocent parents do not lose access to their children while ensuring that credible threats of abuse are properly addressed? So we've kind of talked about this, but let's go ahead and, attack it again.
Again, we are not attacking domestic violence victims. We know that there's men that beat on women, and we know that there's women that beat on men. I mean, we know that. Statistically, I haven't seen, I couldn't tell you if I've seen a quantifiable, accurate percentage. I've seen feminist groups where they say that men beat up the women 90% of the time. I've seen other stuff that I couldn't tell you what the true statistic is, because the mechanism of reporting, if a man reports, one, he's shamed. Well, why are you doing that to a woman, right? I read somewhere online today, someone says, well, women get trapped in these relationships with these men, these abusers, and they stay in these relationships and they're abused for so long, and they're verbally abused. And if you get a divorce, chances are you've yelled at your ex, right? And she's abused you, he's abused you. It goes both ways, right? Doesn't mean it needs a protective order because he's verbally abusive, right? And physically, so I have a lot of abuse allegations. My ex has said I've done all these bad things. Not one police report, not one friend has come and said, hey, I saw her with a black eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's no mechanism of reporting, right? If the women want to report, they can easily pick up their cell phone, call 911, say, hey, come over here, investigate this. A man beat me, I got a black eye, slapped me around, right? Okay, well then go talk to these people. These people help with protective orders and restraining orders. That's what the women get. I have police reports with my shirt torn up, scratches on my back, and nobody would do anything. The district attorneys all preach Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we're against domestic violence, and we advocate for this and this and this. But when a man comes, there's no resources. Suck it up. Go get a new shirt. Put some antibiotic on those scratches and just keep moving on. And then guess what? The women get the protective order, and then somehow the pattern I've seen, these people who get the protective order, they circle around and come back to finish their prey. Trackers are on cars.
Oh yeah,
right?
they can literally set you up to look like you're violating the protective order.
Right.
Yeah.
They harass you. They make false accounts. They email you. They call you at other times of the night, and then you report, hey, look, this person's harassing me. There's a protective order. And you get beat back down. Shut up. Comply. Obey. But again, you don't see any admonishments for lying, perjury, aggravated perjury. So to answer your question, what would we need? We need family court judges to admonish and punish false allegations, perjury and aggravated perjury. That's what's going to connect that's what's going to reel everything back in. As long as you're allowed to lie with no admonishment, why even go to court? Why even go to court? You go to church looking for Jesus. If there's no Jesus there, there's no Bibles, well, why do you even want to go there? If we're not praising the Lord, why even go there? The same thing for court and justice. Why am I going to go to a courtroom where lawyers are allowed to lie?
I want to read Kyle French's message. Sorry it didn't work out with you, Kyle. We'll get you on next time. He says, one of my favorite scriptures is from the book of Matthew. A father's seed sack splits, and the seeds fell upon multiple soils. as he walked the countryside. Those who fell upon fertile soil did well. Those that germinated in rock lacked the nutrients needed and withered quickly. When a church injects a false image into a personal affair, it has the possibility to influence state matters when there should be a separation from that. Protective orders kill the credibility with just a claim of domestic violence. Protective orders make more rules to violate a respondent. So, Cal, feel free to comment anything else you want, because we'll try to get you in this conversation. You were originally meant to be one of the guests here, but we appreciate that comment. I mean, in my capacity as a news reporter, I have seen so many ridiculous protective orders and temporary restraining orders that have all been for either it's for the most mundane thing imaginable, or it was based on false allegations. I mean, so if I had just that's just been my experience, reading these and investigating these. There's so little credibility to how they're used. And I know that there's a lot of times when it's when it's important and it needs to be used, but it's being abused, I would say, clearly. And I think there are certain law firms and attorneys who know that they can leverage this. That's the first strike. The first strike you do is you do a protective order, against your husband or wife. They look like a criminal all of a sudden, and then they come back to court and they got this protective order on them. Makes them look bad, right? So how do you get over that, right? It's just horribly being abused in family courts because there's no standard of evidence for issuing them.
We are all labeled. You're labeled. Jose's labeled. I'm labeled. Kyle French is labeled. All these men fighting to see their child, right? Again, there's no logic in getting the child and beating them up. There isn't. We are loving fathers. We are fighting the system to be equal. But we're all labeled. Why? Because it's so easy to give a protective order. So easy. And what bothers me is that the state bar, through the Texas Family Law Foundation and these family, all these attorneys, they use templates. They use templates with the trigger words. So everybody's protective order probably has the same words in it. Will commit family violence in the future. Has committed family violence. They're making statements of fact that they don't even know are true.
It's based off an affidavit.
Right.
It's all somebody said it.
And I think you said that there's no vetting, because they don't want to vet. You have to vet. If you're going to be a lawyer, an officer of the court, do your due diligence. Removing a parent, again, not a father or a mother. Again, these people say they have represented in court the interest of hundreds of women and children.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm sure again, I'm sure some of those cases were needed, and we're not questioning that, but we are questioning when the church is behind this. Is that ethical? We're definitely questioning their involvement with Jose's case. All the default settlements are very questionable, and then the very idea that only women deserve representation, with all due respect, is questionable when children have two parents, equal parents, and allegations hit both genders. We're both victims of the family court. Those are the things that are very questionable. But as time moves on, I would like to eventually reach out to some more fathers. Look up some of these names in these cases, reach out to some of these dads, get their side of the story, and just find out if there's a pattern here. But
I know 3 fathers in Harris County that have gone to AVDA, which is just like this Methodist Justice Ministries, and AVDA has declined them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They have gone to ask for protective orders because they've been recipients of domestic violence, and those men were denied by AVDA. Right? So even if we walk in there, we're going to be denied.
Mm-hmm.
There's discrimination under that umbrella of the Methodist Justice Ministries. I mean, they brag about it, about hundreds of women, between 25 and 30 new requests for legal representation every week. Holy shit, there's a lot of men beating up a lot of women around
It
here.
creates this perception that men, it supports this existing perception, perception that men are dangerous and only women can be victims of domestic abuse. I mean, that's what they're basically saying. It's only one-sided, right? It perpetuates that perception.
But these women, here's where it's just a cat chasing its tail. These women are going to have baby boys. Yes, you're going to raise them. Okay, you took dad out of the equation, and now you're going to have statistically a child that's emotionally, mentally deficient. That's your child, and then guess what? He's going to go and have another child, right? And they're going to have protective orders on him. And then you're going to be a grandma that's not going to see your child, and you're going to end up back in our group or back in the movement. So it's just a circle.
Or think about their sons who grow up and enter, then they get divorced and they're facing false allegations. I mean, I don't know if that's unfortunately, I don't know if karma's the right word, but if you're going to be, one side on this issue, not understand that both sides can be victims, think about your children. Do you want your sons growing up and having to lose access to their your grandchildren, right? I hope they think about that.
Another thing too, a lot of these parents that are labeled, they're going to lose income because they're labeled, and depending on whatever security clearance they need, whatever driver's license they need. I know Jose is a truck driver. He doesn't need his license suspended or messed with, right? That's what he lives on. And when they label you, they put you into these databases. They take your guns. They run your serial numbers of your guns, and they know how many guns you have, and they do all of this just based on allegations. And now you are put in a certain you're put in a certain databases. So now if law enforcement pulls up Ed Brown, oh man, he's got domestic violence, he's got protective orders, and now you're a dangerous man at a traffic stop.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, yeah.
It's not fair to me when nobody is checking their own client. Now I'm being harassed by my ex, which again, they get the protective orders and they want to entrap you, so they come around your house. It's a pattern. Everybody who's watching that's ever had a protective order will know that usually the narcissistic parent will come back around and do something to egg you on to violate so they can diminish you, finish you off. And their attorneys are going to help because not only are they getting paid, right? These attorneys are not doing this pro bono. These attorneys, Methodist Justice Ministry, they're getting paid for their time. And I'm pretty sure they're probably getting paid handsomely. They're not doing it on a low income or pro bono scale. If you're so holy in justice, do this pro bono. Do it for both parents. Help bring the family together. Mediate the issues.
Yeah, talk to the other side. That's one point I wrote it down because I wanted to make it tonight. They're not seriously talking and considering the other side, which is the other side being fathers, right? They're talking to the mother and they're getting her side of the story. They're probably getting worked up emotionally because when you just talk to one side for a long time, you get kind of sucked into that narrative. But what I would say is this is not a law firm, right? Law firms do behave that way often, and that's why we're not talking about a law firm today. We're talking about a Methodist Justice Ministry. They have an ethical and moral duty to their congregation, to the Methodist Church, and to God to seek justice. And if they're going to seek justice, they need to talk to the other side and get their side of the story. And if it's not adding up, and if it's not in the best interest of the child to lose access to the father, then they need to act accordingly, right?
Ed, everything you just say is absolutely 200% true, right? And then you look at the board of directors. You have some very smart, educated people on that board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have anybody on that board of directors that can't read or write. These people are in charge of big things in and around Fort Worth.
Movers and shakers.
And you can't tell me they don't know what they're doing. You can't tell me with all of those law degrees, they haven't come up and said, maybe I should question this one. They know exactly what they're doing. And that's the bad part. You can't tell me that somebody who runs a hedge fund with how much money?
Billions
of dollars. That guy's got a brain on him. You can't tell me he can't say, well, what if she's lying? Or what if he's lying? Is this in the best interest of the kids? No. When you're pushing this movement, right? So one of the things we've seen in Harris County is that a lot of these immigrants are coming in, right? Depending on whatever, I don't care if you're red, blue, Democrat, or Republican. This is a bipartisan issue. We have bad Democrat judges. We have bad Republican judges. And this isn't a partisan issue. But you have all these people crossing the border. Whether you're sympathetic or not, I don't care. But these people come in, and then if they apply for a protective order based on family violence, they get amnesty. They can come into the U.S. and become a citizen because they're escaping domestic violence.
Yes,
so
that's
now,
a whole deal. That's related, correct.
And now are we running a mill here?
Mm-hmm.
I can go under a bridge in El Paso and say, everybody that's been a victim of domestic violence, come over here and line up right here.
Yes, and there's a lot of, again, back to that first idea, there's a lot of incentives in creating people who are accused of this kind of stuff, whether it's going to help you out, with your immigration, or you're going to get grant money or whatnot. And, it diminishes from the real victims out there. We know that domestic violence is serious. We know, I've written about women who have been abused. I wrote a story about a mother whose daughter killed herself because the police didn't take it seriously. It was horrible. But those people, those voices, those stories it's getting really muddy, because there are so many unnecessary incentives for people to lie about this. And the consequences of these lies, has affected my life. It's affected your life, George. It's affected your life, Jose. Kyle French, it's affected his life. When you falsely accuse someone of something and they get away with it, the consequences are very real for the victims of that perjury. And again, that's why I think, we're talking about this today, because we're not discrediting the importance of taking domestic violence and child abuse seriously, but there is a lot of damage that people, lose access to their children, George, at this very moment, over false allegations. And those are consequential to society too. And we don't hear that side of the story. There's no ministry helping us out. There's no nonprofit helping us clear our names or helping, hold the other side accountable for lying. That it's non-existent, because the whole funding incentive is toward incentivizing perjury right now.
Right. We can't, there's no mechanism for reporting perjury, right? Ask your DA, how many perjuries and aggravated perjuries have you, taken to the grand jury? Right? They're going to tell you, oh, we don't do that. Take it back to family court. You go to family court and say, Judge, she just lied. And say, well, take it. That's not the right jurisdiction. You need to go to a criminal court. You need to go and talk to the DA. And I don't know why again, right? So there's no mechanism of injury if someone lies on you. I mean, mechanism of reporting if someone lies. It's a free for all.
But again, the consequences for the people that are facing these false allegations, they can lose access to their children. They could be facing protective orders, criminal, charges, X, Y, and Z. That's the stuff that I think you and we all care about. We're trying to clean that part up, because those stories don't get told.
No.
There's no website with our photo on it talking about us as victims. And it affects women too. These false allegations, of course, affect women and men equally. So
I think we
There's
should start our own 501c and help both male and female and run competition against these guys. We say, come over here. We help men and women. And that's the most Jesus thing to do, right? Jesus would help men and women, not just women,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we'll do it at a very low price, right? If somebody would do that, I mean, it's competition. It's like Coke versus Pepsi, right? And if all these attorneys are doing that,
Yeah.
why even go to court? You're not. Why even hire an attorney if they're going to allow, you know, Miss Johnson and her attorney to lie and perjure themselves, and there's no admonishment? You can have the best attorney. You can go in there with the best affidavits and with the preponderance of the evidence and the friendships between Miss Johnson, her attorney, and a judge in Tarrant County. They're going to just roll over you. They don't care. Again, the SCJC is ineffective when you report a judge. There's nothing they can really do. I talked to the SCJC last week. There's nothing they can really do. They just say, hey, bad judge, don't do it again. There's no teeth. Their budget is so small they can't do anything. They have 4 investigators for the whole state. So these judges aren't afraid of getting admonished by the SCJC. They're not going to lose their seat. These judges aren't worried about Edward and George and Jose because they're not going to lose their seat. So at what point does this become criminal on the judge? At what point do we take a defensive measure and we say, hey, look, you are not going to hurt me no more. You are an elected official. You are bound by the Constitution. You are dirty, and I don't want to be a part of this no more. I don't even want to go to your court because I know what you're going to do. You're allowing these things to happen to me.
So Kyle says, I have proof that a protective order was sought from a lady whose abusive husband moved here from Malaysia. He was facing jail there. She is an accomplished author and pediatrician. Yeah, I think we. So anyway, yeah, it's also misused from right, people who. There's a lot of ways it could be misused, right? There are a lot of crazy stories out there. So clearly, that it's being the whole system's being misused as well. But
Just to go back real quick on the mechanism of reporting, you can't do the protective orders. If she beats you up, if she beats the man up, you can't get any resources. You don't have police cooperation because they just tell you, suck it up, you're the man. So we're not going to take a police report. We don't have any help from the DAs. The DAs aren't going to take charges from a woman beating up a man, right? Or if they do, it's got to be very serious. And right now, what we're seeing, and those that don't follow me or whatever, but my deal is interference with child custody. In Harris County, you have a woman shooting another woman, a stepmother shooting a mother, or a mother shooting a stepmother because they're fighting over child custody. They are increasing the dangers when they're reactive instead of proactive. You have parents going into supervised visitations because of these false allegations. Now, guess who gets money out of the supervised visitation? The county does. So if we don't give you a protective order, we'll give you a protective order and supervised visitations. So now we'll get money from the commissioner's court for the protective orders, and then we're going to feed our friends at the 501c for the SAFE program, where you can do supervised visitations, whatever. They're going to get a chunk of it.
Cash money.
Right? And then you as a parent, you lose your rights because you come in there and you're still fighting for your children, right? And then now you're still asking about things of the welfare of the child. Hey, daddy loves you or whatever. And then some of these supervisors tell you can't say that to the child. What do you mean I can't tell my child I love him? Well, you can't hold the child like that. Sir, you're going to have to move away. And you're paying for that. And then when you ask for records or videos, the bailiffs are coming after you. The bailiffs are threatening you, or not bailiffs, but the law enforcement security that's there at the SAFE program. Now that parent, just because they didn't have legal representation, they were beat down with false allegations, now diminished to supervised visitation, and then when they try to do anything at supervised visitation, they're smacked down again because you're an abuser. You don't get to call the shots. And I'm still a parent.
And yeah, and actually, you're kind of hinting at some stuff that's happened to Jose. For folks that don't know, he's gone through that exact experience, and it can be very frustrating. And Jose, one thing they're using against you, if I can just kind of say briefly, is understandably you got frustrated and lost your temper because of all of that. And now they're saying, well, he lost his temper this one time. He doesn't deserve to get off supervised visitation. Um, One thing, here's one I want to mention one thing because this case is in the 231st, and I don't want to miss an opportunity to talk about Jesse Navarez or Kevin Schmidt. I've talked about Jesse Navarez quite a bit, so that's all kind of published. But Kevin Schmidt, one thing that really upset me when I came to that hearing, Jose's hearing, right before Jose was going to give his opening statement, which was really well written, well done, Jose. You handled yourself very well that day. Kevin tried to undermine his Jose's reason for even being there by saying, well, did you appeal this decision beforehand? It was really upsetting because Jose was there seeking justice, and we have a right to come to court to expect and seek justice. It's not for the judge to question me while I'm there. And then even worse, what is Schmidt saying? Is he saying that how dare you say that supervised visitation for the rest of your child's childhood is not okay? Or let me rephrase that. Basically, why is Kevin questioning why someone would want something better than supervised visitation? Of course he does.
Mm-hmm.
I would come back if I was placed on supervised visitation. Does Kevin think he's going to be happy seeing his kids in that sterile environment until they're 18? Is that what Kevin's saying? You should just accept this and never see your kids outside that building. What was Kevin trying to say?
I don't know. It just maybe trying to discourage me from lead. But another thing that they mainly do and they use is like it case to case, depending on the person, they could tell you, hey, you know what, you cannot hug your kid, or you can, talking to him a certain way or a different language. So
Mm-hmm.
so if you know more than one language, you can't talk to your kid on a different language. So that's automatically,
And what parental right does that agency have? What order gives them the ability to tell you how to parent your child? It doesn't. It's just supervised visitation.
Yeah, but they change the rules as they see fit.
Yeah, of course they do, right? Because there's no mechanism of reporting. It's just like parents that I work with that go to supervised visitation. The judge has ordered them supervised visitation with their children, and in this case, we'll just say mother, right, doesn't bring the child to the supervised visitation. They want to report it, interference with child custody. They won't do it.
They won't do it.
So
already tried.
So the judge says, hey, look, I still think it's in the best interest that you see your child during supervised visitation. And to me, I'm like, hey, that supervised visitation place, they're all witnesses to a felony.
Mm-hmm.
Call them in, all of them, subpoena them all, and have them call the police station and make a police report for interference with child custody. Because if you have a log that the judge says both of y'all are supposed to be here for the child, and then the mom still doesn't bring the child, not only has she put him on supervised visitation, but now she has stopped going to the supervised visitation.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what? Slowly, why is Jose paying $160 a week or whatever they want to charge you? These supervised visitations, they don't do it for free. They're going to charge you $100, $150 or whatever it is to come see your child for 2 hours. And then guess what? The county gets all that money back. Those 501Cs get them all the money back.
In my case, they're not charging me, but there's other people in there that they have to pay cash. They have to bring cash to make their payment.
To see your child, based on false allegations.
Correct.
And that's the current situation I'm in. My ex lied. She lied on her affidavit. She lied in her testimony. I brought it up in our testimony. It was material to this case. Told the judge flat out, that's aggravated perjury. Her affidavit does not equal what she just testified to. And the judge says, "There's nothing I can do. Mr. Saldana, go to supervised visitations." Ordered me to it. And I told her I wasn't going to do it. Because if I go to supervised visitation, now I'm labeled again. Mm-hmm. So I'm stuck in this hard place between, do I want to see my child, or do I want to pay $150 to go to supervised visitation knowing that she lied? So now, is that extortion? Yeah. And they're doing this to a lot of fathers. So you're breaking up the household because you know these guys will fight. Again, at what point do you take a defensive measure and you say, no, you're not going to violate me anymore? Because if there's no mechanism of reporting, there's no admonishments, there's no oversight with the SCJC.
Yeah.
And is this what that guy was thinking when he shot that judge last week or 2 weeks ago? There's absolutely no mechanism of reporting at all. But they give every protective order based on any allegation you want. That's the current situation we're in now.
I wouldn't put all the blame on the judge. I would say it's the way the opposing is presenting the case, the way they're making you look, you know. So if you can...
To me, and I might disagree just a little bit, I think the judge, if you're a judge, you went to law school, and you always hear that, and Judge Julia said it, I've heard other attorneys say it, you know, that these judges are quacks, that they're not real smart out in the field, so they put them in the judicial seats, you know, just to have a place for them to sit.
The family court judges especially, it's like a reward for donating a lot of money.
Yeah. Right. And so if these people aren't top tier, and that's kind of been my whole fight. Like, you went to law school. I went to fireman school. I know things that firemen should know. And if I'm letting people start fires and I'm not doing anything about it or talking about it, then I'm complicit with them. I'm okay with them lying, right? But they can't. The judges don't want to turn in the lawyers don't want to turn in the judges. The SCJC is ineffective. The state bar runs everything. They give all the templates with all the trigger words in it. All these attorneys are on this board. They're running this under the church. This is a well-organized machine to make money. Yep. This isn't, oh, well, I'm a bad lawyer and I suck, right? Because the patterns that you're seeing in Tarrant County are happening exactly. This is a business practice. Mm-hmm. This is a business practice, and the state bar is an agency. They give this material to their lawyers to give these templates to file into cases.
Correct.
How come these lawyers aren't writing their own motions, right, based on what their client is saying? And they may do that. They may interject some of their things that their client are saying, but those trigger words stay the same. Has committed domestic violence, has committed family violence, and will commit family violence in the future. Has a history. Case law history says that it just has to happen one time, and then you have a history of it. So if you yelled at your ex, you have a history of verbal abuse. If you broke her heart, you have a history of breaking hearts. Emotional abuse. I broke a lot of girls' hearts when I was 18. Doesn't mean I'm a domestic violence abuser, but apparently to that, emotional abuse is breaking somebody's heart. What about the child's heart?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, these children, they don't, I mean, they're losing access to their parent. They're probably not being told everything because, you know, you cut the dad out. So now it's just one narrative.
Don't
or maybe
talk to your children about what's going on in court.
Yeah.
when my kids were teenagers, I told them, hey man, look, I'm trying to see you guys. I love you guys. What can I do to help you? And they try to throw me to the wolves about that. You can't tell me how to parent. Some of these parents want to teach their kids violin, baseball, football. I went to my first child's football game the other day, and all the parents there, and I've never experienced this because I haven't had my kids, right? But I went to my nephew's Pop Warner game. There's all these parents in there, mothers, fathers, cheering on their little kids. And they weren't cheering like, go, go, go. These guys are ruthless to the referees, to the other coaches, to the other kids. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm the guy with the protective order. All these parents, my God. It's a natural instinct to fight for your children. So just like these parents were ruthless on the football field, that's how they parent. Doesn't mean it's wrong. But when three guys get on a Facebook Live, oh my God, these guys are unhinged. They're not mentally stable. They kick. They said I kicked somebody in the pregnant stomach. I kicked my ex in the pregnant stomach. Well, where's the report? Just tell me a police officer showed up for what you're saying. But no. But my kid was taken from me.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead because we're going to come back to this topic in the future. We're going to do some more research. I definitely want to find some more cases, hopefully find some more dads like Jose who have been falsely accused by this justice ministry. And I'm sure they've done some really good work. But if you're doing 100 cases a year under this kind of pattern, it's very likely that you're screwing over a lot of innocent dads. So, it's worth our time to keep looking into this. I was just going to share one last thing because, again, I went to this church and I I guess I still think very highly of it. I don't think the people in the congregation really understand what's going on. But I remember there was a Father's Day sermon and I believe his name was Lance Marshall, was the pastor. And it was a really beautiful story that he shared. Yeah, Lance Marshall, and he was recounting when he remembers. Now he's a dad. He's saying, I'm a dad now, and I understand things that that my dad did. I appreciate things that my dad did when he was younger because now I'm doing that stuff. And he said, I remember when I was a kid, my dad coming home from a long day of work, he'd be in his suits. And I'd be so excited to see him because I needed to practice baseball. I'd just, say, hey, Dad, can you come catch? And he practice my pitching. And he now realizes, how exhausted his dad was. But he always, went straight out to the backyard, even with his work suit on or whatever, and got down and caught balls for, an hour before dinner. And it was a beautiful story about fatherhood. And, if you're listening, Reverend Lance, I want to tell you that you had a great father. And I can tell you you're a great father, Reverend Lance. And I want to tell you that Jose is a great father. And we need good fathers. I mean, I think that's at the core of what we do, and a lot of our friends, who are in this are fighting for is just, we need fathers in the lives of children, and the justice ministry should not be in the business of interfering with that. So I'll just leave it with that, George. I know you're not going to top that story, but you didn't go to that church. But go ahead and give me your final thoughts.
Fathers are needed, period, right? And everything you're saying, I agree with, and it hurts me. Every father that's in this movement is a great father because you go out because they're fighting people with law degrees. They're fighting people in positions of power. Why? Just to have the ability to nurture their child. That's a warrior. That's a father right there. That is a man man that's fighting for his family. That's a great father. There are fathers out there that gave up. And I understand they gave up, right? And some people have to give up. Some people, fathers are killing themselves. I know I've been emotionally, I've hit every emotional, I've been emotionally everywhere in the last 6 years. I've been happy, sad, depressed, anxiety, everything. I've had health ailments because of it, right? It's killing us. It's working us. But what keeps me going is that I hope to be able to produce a society where parents don't have to work so hard to see their child. There needs to be another landmark case. There needs to be a new Troxel and Granville, and things need to be defined. Best interest of the child. Perjury needs to come back. Aggravated perjury. We can go to the moon, but we can't fix these simple solutions or these simple problems with simple solutions like enforcing the law. We're headed down the wrong path. And if you're going to consistently use that under the umbrella of Jesus Christ, there's no place for you in my society. And if I have to whistleblow, if I have to advocate against you because I believe in, and everybody has an opinion these days. And these people are going to come after us. These people are going to come and they're going to say how bad we are and we're all these abusers to hide that scam. They're willing to go that far to tarnish us to keep their momentum, that money flowing. That's what bugs me, and that's what keeps me going.
And to be clear, they're fighting to cling on to power and money, and we're fighting just to be a father. So there is a difference, and there's no moral equivalency here at all. Jose, you get the last word, my friend.
Can't stop either one of you. No,
just from the heart.
But hopefully we can get through certain people. They can look deep down and realize that what they're doing is wrong. You cannot be penalized for hugging your kid or try to kiss them or something like that. I believe that's 100% wrong. Keep that from you. It's just it is what it is. That's one of the things that we're fighting, for. But
in the end, and I just want to leave with this to blanket everything we're saying. In the end, whoever's watching, whether you're a lawyer, judge, you're with Ministry, MGM, you're with ABDA, you're with the We Hate George Saldana, Edward Brown Club, right? Whoever you are, at the end of the day, we're not against domestic violence. And I'm putting that on the record right now. No, we just want everyone to be treated equally. That's it. It's not a big, there's no big revelation. There's nothing cynical about what we're doing. There's no unethical, immoral, unlawful actions here. All we are asking for equality and the laws to be held up the way they were prescribed by the legislature. That's it.
Okay. On that note,
all right.
Thanks everyone for watching, and I know you guys are all fighting out there for what we're fighting for, so we hear you and we appreciate everyone out there. So, all right.
All right, guys.
Have a good.
All right, guys. So next